Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving. How are you doing? It's Black Friday. Final score from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Notre Dame over North Carolina, 31-17. A little bit of a weird game. It felt like Notre Dame was behind in this game when they were actually only behind twice in the game. For some reason in this game, it felt like Notre Dame was behind the whole game. The way their offense was a little slowed, and the way Ian Book was being rushed and being forced out of the pocket, and a lot of the design runs that Brian Kelly was offering for the play calling for Book to run. But it felt like a sloppy game, but it really wasn't. It's just that North Carolina has good defensive talent, and they have good athletes on defense, and they were able to bottle up the run up until the fourth quarter when Kyrie Williams broke it open there. But hey, I hate to use the term because I don't usually believe in it. A win is a win. I don't want to necessarily say that, but I hate to say this, that they won ugly today on offense. But I mean, did they really win ugly on offense today, or is it just because Notre Dame's defense was so great? I mean, that's basically what this was. Is Notre Dame's defense was tremendous, and I mean, North Carolina averages over 535 yards a game. Okay, Notre Dame held them under 300 yards. I believe North Carolina's total offense was 298 yards. And Ian Book out there today was a magician. He was more than a magician. He was Master Yoda out there. He was floating around, floating the ball around. It was like the part in Empire Strikes Back when Yoda lifted up the X-wing for Luke Skywalker. As you can hear my dogs barking in the background, they bark at everything. I apologize for that. No, I do not have a soundproof studio in my man cave. I hope to get one day so you don't hear the dogs barking upstairs, but they bark at everything. So someone is probably outside walking their dog or checking their mail, and the dogs are just going crazy. But you know what? The dogs are happy because I'm happy because Notre Dame won. They're going into next weekend 9-0. Brian Kelly gets his 101st win as a Notre Dame coach. Ian Book improves to 29-3, I believe, as a starter at Notre Dame. I don't know what the real record is because you have three different records of Ian Book at Notre Dame. So I'm going to say as a starter, he's 29-3, and as an overall quarterback, he's like 33-3. Pretty impressive, and he was, once again, the story of the game. As you can hear my dogs barking, and I apologize. Just tremendous kid. He's grown so much. I mean, being there for 5 years, I'm happy for him. And there was a little bit of me scratching my head in the game, a little bit of Brian Kelly mishap coaching, that I got a little frustrated about, and I will tell you that right now what that is. And I got a little excited because up until this game was up until the fourth quarter when Notre Dame pulled ahead by 2 touchdowns and Notre Dame then put it away late in the fourth quarter. This game was close. Notre Dame's defense took over after the first quarter when North Carolina scored 2 quick touchdowns and went down the field. Okay, we know that Notre Dame they adjusted. Okay, and also when they lost Kyle Hamilton to that targeting call, they still made adjustments. They still held North Carolina less than 300 yards. That's impressive. That this defense is better than the 2012 defense. Okay, but North Carolina's first 2 drives were 75 yards down the field, scored a touchdown. 52 yards went down the field, scored a touchdown. Those were their 2 scoring drives, and then they had the field goal, of course. And Notre Dame held them without a touchdown the rest of the game. I mean, just pretty impressive with their defense, and I think they're a lot more athletic. But they're a lot more athletic than they were 2012, I should say, and a lot quicker, and a lot bigger, and a lot better. I'll end that story with the defense. But getting to the point about Brian Kelly that left me scratching my head, there was a play in the fourth quarter. It was either late third quarter or early fourth quarter where Notre Dame was driving down the field. They were trying to put the game away. They were already up by a touchdown. Ian Book threw the ball for, I believe it was to Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer fell, but he stepped out of bounds first, then came back in. They call that illegal touching. So that usually is called, and you cannot do that. Well, the play wasn't called right away. Ian Book was in the huddle. There should have been a no huddle. It took too long. It took 30 seconds for them to get the play off because I was counting it. After that play was done, when he caught the ball out, when Michael Mayer caught the ball out of bounds, went out of bounds, stepped back in, caught the ball. There was 30 seconds between that and then when the refs blew the whistle. And I was furious with Brian Kelly because you're as a coach, you're supposed to be aware. You're supposed to know that they're going to review that call. And also, your offensive coordinators up in the press box and your other coaches should be telling you, get this play off. No, they took too long. The play was overturned. Notre Dame ended up punting the ball shortly after that. And I was like, here we go again with Brian Kelly, mishap coaching. Here we go with Brian Kelly leaving you scratching your head. And that didn't happen. Notre Dame overcame that. The things that I've seen with Notre Dame the last 10 years with Brian Kelly, they've overcome. Mistakes that he's made, mistakes that Ian Book has made where they shot themselves in the foot, which cost them later on in the game, they've overcome those. They did that with Clemson. Book did that with Clemson on that fumble when he went into the end zone late in the third quarter a couple weeks ago against Clemson. I mean, I said late in the fourth quarter. Those were mistakes that they were making, and they were shortly going to lose after those mistakes. Like when Brian Kelly did not get the next playoff and encourage Book to get out there and have no huddle, I was like, here we go again. Here we go again, back to the old Brian Kelly, where I've been giving him credit. This is the most credit I've ever given him since he's been here. I mean, they've accomplished so much that they've fallen backwards on before. And today they proved me wrong again. Ian Book proved me wrong again. Brian Kelly has proven me wrong all year, and I hope that he continues to prove me wrong all year. Now, another thing is when Dord missed that field goal too, I was pissed off. Like that was a pretty easy chip shot. Should have been right down the middle field goal. Look, I am not a football player. I don't know what it's like to kick into pressure. Okay. But that kick should have been made. Notre Dame should have been up by 2 scores at that point. Notre Dame just, I don't know what it was, but they just felt like they were behind this whole game. And that field goal would have made it a better feeling for me as a fan, because you're already up by 2 scores. Your defense has played really well. You sucked the momentum out of North Carolina if you kick that field goal and you make it. Now, after that field goal was missed, North Carolina had a couple first downs, but then Notre Dame's defense again proved me wrong. Brian Kelly proved me wrong. Their defense came up big again and stopped North Carolina. And they need to do that continually against Clemson in the ACC championship game. Now, listen, it's going to be, and they're already going there, okay? I mean, they're going to beat Syracuse next week, and even if they lose to Wake Forest in a couple weeks, which I don't think they will, Wake Forest is a good team too. They're like North Carolina. They can score very quickly. That game is on the road. I think Notre Dame's going to be okay. This game left me comfortable. Now, I am comfortable with Notre Dame in the next 2 games. I think they're going to be okay. They'll easily beat Syracuse. Yes, I have enough confidence, and this is the most positive I've ever been about Notre Dame in the last 15 years, folks. Okay, I have confidence that Notre Dame will win easily next weekend. That game is on 1:30 Central Time on NBC. That's the last home game of the year. I can't believe that. It's already going to be December. That game's over on NBC, of course. They'll easily beat Syracuse. I think they'll have an easier time with Wake Forest than they did with North Carolina. North Carolina will score some points. But then again, you got to watch out for the upset bug. But even if Notre Dame does lose the Wake Forest, I think they'll still make it to the ACC championship game. And I just, it's really hard to beat a team twice in college football, especially when you have equal talent, especially when you have Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback, which Clemson will have. Being that the game is not canceled or pushed back because of COVID-19, let's hope that doesn't happen. But I can see Notre Dame winning the next 2 games and losing the ACC championship game. I hate to say it because it's, listen, I mean, I'm being completely truthful here and honest with you guys, but they will not beat Clemson the second time. If they do, then this team has proven me wrong, and I should probably stop being a Notre Dame fan because I'm too negative. But it's too hard to beat a team twice in college football, especially when you have the great quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who you know he's going to be ready for that game, and you know Clemson's going to remember that game, and they're going to be ready to play that game as well. Now, during the game, the ABC ESPN announcers, Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, were given scenarios if Notre Dame does win the rest of their games, and let's say they go into the ACC championship game against Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. Let's say that Notre Dame gets blown out, which is a possibility they could. Let's say they get blown out. It's terrible, ugly loss. Well, of course, Chris Fowler, because Chris Fowler really never gives any Notre Dame credit. Up until tonight, he did. I was a little surprised the credit that he gave to Notre Dame, but I know it had to hurt him to say it, because Chris Fowler, don't let him fool you. He's a big-time Big Ten guy. He's a big-time Ohio State, Michigan guy. He still thinks that Michigan is relevant, because last weekend's game, when Michigan got blown out by Wisconsin, it made it seem like he made, and I'm not, you know, you all know that I hate Michigan, and I'm not over exaggerating here. When it was 38-0 or 35-0 or something like that in that Michigan game, he made it seem like Michigan still had a chance. That guy is a Michigan guy. That guy's a Big Ten guy. So you know it hurts him to give Notre Dame credit, but he actually gave some Notre Dame credit tonight. But the beef I have with him and Kirk Herbstreit is that, going back to the Clemson game, if they get to the ACC championship game, that if Clemson blows them out big time, does Notre Dame deserve to be in the top 4 still, even though they had beat him earlier in the year? And of course, the answer is ridiculously yes. They beat him in the beginning of the year, earlier in the year, I should say, early November. Okay, you beat it. You beat the biggest team in the country, and then you finish the regular season undefeated. Then you go to the ACC championship game and you lose, and hypothetically, let's say they got blown out, but you had already beaten them the first time. Of course, they belong there. They better not sneak in some bullshit Big Ten team. I'll be pissed off at this college football playoff format if they do that, but I don't see that happening. So all Notre Dame needs to do is stay the course, take care of Syracuse, take care of Wake Forest, then worry about the championship game against Clemson and go on from there. And hey, if you beat them, then you deserve to be in the. I believe if they beat them again, which is very impossible. I shouldn't say it's impossible, which is not very possible. I mean, I give them like maybe a 30% chance that they could beat Clemson again. But let's say that they do. Notre Dame deserves to be the number 1 team in the country. If you beat them without Trevor Lawrence, and then you beat them again with Trevor Lawrence, and the first time you beat them, giving up 400 yards passing, then you deserve to be the number 1 team, not Alabama. Because if you can beat a top-ranked team twice in 1 year, which it would be pretty incredible for Notre Dame and Brian Kelly, you deserve to be the number 1 team. I mean, Alabama plays AAA baseball teams in football. I mean, they play middle school, like Central Alabama, Southwest, Northwest of the blind. Like, I've never heard that school before, but that's who Alabama plays. And even though they are playing a full SEC schedule this year, everybody loves Alabama, and of course you're going to keep Alabama at number 1. But if Notre Dame does go and wins this AC championship game and beats Clemson twice, then they deserve, and they finish their undefeated before the national championship in the college football program thing, or whatever you call it, playoff. They deserve to be the number 1 team in the country. I'm sorry, not Alabama. That's just my opinion. And that's not me speaking as a fan. It's just common sense. Like, stop putting Alabama. And then another thing that really annoys me is where Ohio State is. I mean, Ohio State started their season a couple weeks ago. Ohio State gave up a lot of yards to Indiana, and of course they turn that around and say, well, Indiana's for real. But you know what? I mean, I like Indiana, not to piss off my Hoosier fans, but Indiana is not a Wisconsin. Indiana is not like a statement game where you look at this TV and you glue your eyes to it. That they escaped that game to Indiana. And listen, Indiana's a good team. I mean, they beat up on Michigan and they beat up on Penn State earlier in the year when Penn State was ranked. But Penn State's terrible this year, and Michigan's terrible this year. But again, they love Ohio State, and Ohio State will always be a top 4 team no matter what who they beat. So I would love to see Notre Dame. This would be my dream scenario. I would love to see Notre Dame finish the year undefeated, of course, beat Clemson, which is very highly unlikely, low percent chance, go to the college football playoff, beat up on Ohio State, because Ohio State gives up a lot of yards and a lot of points, and you saw that against Indiana. Even though Indiana's a good team, Notre Dame's better than Indiana. They're a top notch over Indiana, okay? And Indiana has a great coach and they have great athletes and they have a good quarterback. But I think Notre Dame beating Ohio State, beating up on Ohio State, beating Clemson twice, go to the national championship game, beat Alabama, that, and get the revenge for 2012. That would be my ultimate too many cigars, too many beer, drunk off my ass, B-man dream scenario. That would make me happy. But until then, I'm taking 1 weekend at a time. Next weekend against Syracuse, of course, and the weekend after that, Wake Forest. Then we'll worry about the ACC championship game and worry about Clemson then. I was a little concerned tonight, going back to the game, I was a little concerned tonight about Kyren Williams. Up until the fourth quarter, He was only averaging 3.5 yards a carry. Up until tonight's game, he was averaging over 6 yards a carry. Listen, North Carolina's defensive line, they're the linebackers. They were bottling the box, and they were keeping Notre Dame from running the ball. Like, a little bit of that was because of the run pass option with design run pass option RPO that Brian Kelly had designed for Ian Book. I get that. But they were able to keep Notre Dame from running the ball up until late in the fourth quarter when North Carolina ran out of gas. But Connor Williams, he's another one who doesn't disappoint me. I like the kid very much. He had a productive fourth quarter, still had a productive game. He's such a great threat. This game just proved a lot what Notre Dame is. They've got a huge tight end set. They got, it seems like each week they're finding more receivers to throw the ball to. Even when Kyle Hamilton was thrown out of the game for the targeting call and defense, they just found another way to get better on defense and continue to win and just continue to prove me wrong, continue to prove B-Man wrong, I should say. But like I said, that's what we went over today. Let's go over it again. Notre Dame has proven B-Man wrong again. Brian Kelly has proved me wrong again, even though back 12 years ago, or not even 12 years ago, because Brian Kelly wasn't here yet. He's only been he came in 09, it's 11 years. The old Brian Kelly would have lost this game with that one play scratching my head. He's proven me wrong. They overcame that. The missed field goal by Dorr would have sucked all the momentum out of Notre Dame and given them to North Carolina. That would have bit Notre Dame in the ass. The old Brian Kelly, the old Notre Dame team. But again, they overcame that with their great defense. Like, we went over that. And also, B-Man's dream scenario about them beating up on Clemson again, going to the college football playoff program thing, whatever you call it, beating Ohio State to get to the national championship game, and beating Alabama and avenging their loss from 2012. That is the ultimate dream scenario for me. But you know what? No, folks, I'm not drunk. I just speaking as a fan here. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Final score again: Notre Dame 31, North Carolina 17. Notre Dame improves to 9-0, and they take on Clemson next weekend, of course. And again, I'll give you that time again: 1:30 Central Time on NBC. Notre Dame's last home game of the year. Again, folks, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving. I did. I was very full yesterday. I went to bed early yesterday. I ate too much. I always eat too much on Thanksgiving. It was a little different, not being around people, not being around family. But you know what? I still got to eat. You know, Americans, we love to eat. So we got to do that. So it wasn't all that bad. And sometimes I like spending a low-key Thanksgiving where it's just quiet. It's you and your dogs and your girlfriend, and you relax and you don't worry about anything, and you don't have to worry about the family or pissing anyone off or saying the wrong thing, because it seems like every Thanksgiving there's always that one dysfunctional family member, or there's always that one family member, B-Man, that pisses everyone off, says the wrong thing, doesn't intend to piss off, or they start talking about politics and they kick each other out of the house, or someone drops the turkey and they start fighting, or the turkey's not cooked well enough, or the cookie's overcooked, or someone gets blamed for the stuffing being too dry. There was none of that this year. It was actually pretty nice, and it was quiet. So maybe this was a blessing in disguise for me, being around peace and serenity, and just being able to wear my pajama pants and a t-shirt and smell like onions because I hadn't taken a shower yet. That's the beauty about being on your own for Thanksgiving. Yes, I know you didn't want to hear that. However, there was a good side to it. But other than that, I hope I didn't ruin your guys' appetite about you thinking that I smell like onions and I have bad BO. I do take a shower every day, but I was just lazy yesterday because I didn't want to take a shower because we were by ourselves for Thanksgiving with the dogs and we enjoyed our food. And yep, folks, that's pretty much it. Like this video. Also, subscribe for those of you who are new. Go Irish, and I'll see you guys next weekend. Thank you so much.